Okay, let's just dive right into this. You know that deep, almost bone-tired exhaustion that comes from just navigating human connection? If you're feeling that, trust me, you are absolutely not alone. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to unpack a really brilliant system called the Architect. We're talking about that sheer exhaustion from having the same recurring arguments, constantly walking on eggshells, or twisting yourself into knots to fit someone else's mood, and doing all of that before you've even had your morning coffee. Why on earth does it feel so hard? And honestly, more importantly, why do the exact same painful relationship patterns just keep returning, no matter how much you try to talk it out?
It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it? I mean, you have the exact same fights, the same triggers pop up, and you're left with that same awful feeling of disconnect. But what if the problem isn't actually about finding the perfect words or figuring out who's to blame? Today, we're going to look at relationships through a totally different lens. It's a structural, architectural way to view human interaction. And the best part, in this system, there are literally no villains and no victims. There is only architecture. We're going to learn how to actually see the system itself.
So to do this, we really need two foundational tools. The first one is what we call the interface. Think of the interface as the actual physical contact surface between you and another person. It's a highly dynamic system. Really, it's the noisy space where all human exchange actually happens. And it's not just the words you're saying to each other. No way. It carries your tone, your timing, the emotional charge in the room, and all the messy history you both bring to the table. And here's the kicker. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to control or fix this noisy interface. Now, in stark contrast to all that noise, we have our second tool, the Coherent Nexus. If the interface is that chaotic space between people, well, the nexus is your sovereign inner core. It's this internal structure where your value, your identity, and your sense of direction are completely independent of whatever chaos is happening out there on the interface. Your true, unshakable stability, it absolutely has to reside right here, in the nexus, not out there in the noise. So how do we actually use these? Well, these two tools build into a really strict three-step framework that we'll be using throughout this entire explainer. It goes insight, recognition, and solution. Step 1, insight. That's using the interface to explain the actual mechanics of what's going wrong. Step 2, recognition. That's spotting the physical and emotional signals right when a pattern starts to kick off. And step 3 is the solution, returning to the nexus. Because, and this is a real game changer, the nexus solves the problem just by existing. It doesn't fight the other person, it just creates a space where that toxic pattern literally can't grab hold of you anymore. All right, here's our blueprint for today. We'll be covering 1. System architecture. 2. Instability and emotional blackmail. 3. Internal filters and old wounds. 4. 2 languages. 5. Parenting repair. And finally, 6. The daily practice. Let's get into it. Section 1. Instability and emotional blackmail. Navigating external pressures. Let's apply our three-step framework to what the source material brilliantly calls the avocado dynamic. You know how an avocado is, right? One day it's a literal rock, you blink, and bam, it's total mush. Well, an unpredictable partner is exactly like that. The insight here is actually pretty profound. You aren't exhausted just because they're unstable. You're exhausted because you were trying to pull your own emotional balance from that totally unstable interface. The recognition phase, that's what we call the morning scan. You know, waking up and immediately checking their mood before you even check your own. So the solution, you absolutely must move the source of your balance back into your own nexus. Think about it like this. If you rely solely on the interface, you essentially have a forced subscription to someone else's daily weather. Their mood completely dictates your day. You're just living in this exhausting state of high noise and constant reaction. But when you actively build your coherent nexus, you create a sovereign channel. You establish a firm internal baseline of peace. You can definitely still love and support the other person, but your inner cash register isn't tied to their fluctuating economy anymore. Now, let's pivot slightly to emotional blackmail, which, let's be honest, is a bit more sinister. This is when someone actively tries to reprogram your interface using guilt, fear, or obligation. So how do you recognize it? Well, it hits your body first. You'll feel this visceral physical contraction, like a tightness in your chest or your stomach. You'll catch yourself pre-negotiating conversations in your head with them when they aren't even in the room. And you'll definitely notice a justification reflex, meaning you feel this intense, burning need to over-explain every single one of your boundaries. So what's the nexus solution for untangling yourself from this invisible web of blackmail? It's surprisingly simple, but incredibly powerful. First, just slow down. Blackmail only thrives at high speed.
Second, silently name the currency they're trying to use on you. Is it guilt? Is it fear? The moment you name it, it kind of loses its hypnotic power. And finally, state your core truth without justifying it. You really have to remember this. Absolutely no one can enter the control room of your mind unless you hand over the key, piece by piece, in small coins of justification. So keep your coins. Moving on to Section 2, Internal Filters and Old Wounds, the hardware inside. All right, so here are our 3 steps applied internally. The really crucial insight here is that your old wounds don't just sit in some dusty mental filing cabinet. They live right there on the interface as highly active filters, and they magnify everything that comes in. The recognition signal for this is always disproportionate. Look, if a delayed text message feels like absolute crushing abandonment, well, that's not the reality of the text, is it? That's your filter magnifying it. The solution is to stop asking the interface to heal you and instead fulfill that function internally, right inside your nexus. Let's break down 2 really common primal filters. First is the mother wound, which basically filters everything for rejection. If you have this active, you're just constantly scanning the interface for validation, always seeking a sense of emotional tuning from others. Then there's the father hunger. This one filters for failure. It constantly seeks structure, direction, and authority from the outside world, and feels incredibly betrayed when that world falls short. By honestly identifying which filter you're running, you can actively recognize when it's totally distorting your reality today. Section 3. 2 languages, 1 wall. Communication breakdown. The architect system reveals something absolutely fascinating here. What we so often label as character flaws in our partners are actually just protective protocols. Take the grip protocol. People with this seek safety and closeness. When they get stressed, they text, they check in, they want to resolve things right now, this very second. They're driven by a deep fear of loss. On the flip side, the space protocol seeks safety and distance. When they're stressed, they withdraw, they get quiet, and they just need room to breathe. They're driven by a fear of disappearing or being totally overwhelmed. You see, these aren't flaws. They are just highly intelligent firewalls that we built in childhood to find safety. So the profound system axiom to solve this deadlock is actually pretty simple. If you're a space person and you get into an argument with a grip person's constant texting, you're fighting their protocol. And guess what? It'll only make their firewall stronger. The golden rule is don't answer the protocol, answer the fear beneath it. If you answer their deep fear of loss by just saying, hey, I am not going anywhere, I just need an hour to myself, well, that firewall almost instantly deactivates. Section 4, Repairing with Your Children, the Ultimate Test. Okay, the absolutely crucial point here is summarized in this incredibly beautiful phrase from the source material: transmission, not guilt. Look, we all inherit factory settings from the generations that came before us. Our nervous system baselines, our stress responses. You didn't pack all the baggage you arrived with, and honestly, neither did your parents. The goal of this entire framework is not to assign blame or to sit around feeling guilty about what you might have passed down. The goal is simply seeing the system clearly so you can finally interrupt the pattern. When it comes to repairing with your kids, sitting down to talk to them about those times your filters or your avocado instability completely took over, this axiom is your guide. A child does not need a perfect history to be whole, but they desperately need a parent who can name the history without drowning in it. You just calmly tell them, hey, my reaction earlier, that was my stuff, it was not your fault. That calm, honest naming is exactly what securely repairs the relationship. Before you even sit down to have that repair conversation with a child, you need to ask yourself this ultimate test question. Am I giving or am I asking? Because if you're confessing your guilt and crying, secretly hoping the child is going to say, oh, it's okay, I forgive you, then you are asking the child to regulate your emotions. And actually, that's just repeating the old pattern. True repair is giving. It's giving them the massive relief of knowing that the noise on the interface was never, ever their fault. Which brings us to Section 5, the daily nexus practice. Becoming the architect. The reality is, the external world is always going to remain completely unpredictable. You simply cannot always choose the interface. You're going to encounter stressed colleagues, upset children, and difficult partners. That's just life. But you can always choose the nexus. Building your coherent nexus isn't just some one-time magical revelation. It's a daily, highly repeatable choice that you make at the start and the end of every single day. So here's the concrete routine to make this a lived experience. Step 1,
every single morning before you check your phone or try to read anyone else's mood, check your own nexus. Establish your baseline first. Step 2, throughout the day, in those really loaded moments, apply the 3 steps. Get the insight, recognize your bodily signals, and reply from your inner core. Remember, answer the fear, not the protocol. And step 3, every evening, register your moments of coherence and just forgive yourself for the moments the filter won. Seriously, no judgment, just observation. We're going to leave you with this final, really provocative thought. It's essentially the ultimate statement of personal sovereignty. I couldn't choose what I received. I choose what I pass on. You didn't choose your early wounds, you didn't choose your nervous system's baseline or the ancestral baggage dumped right on your interface. But today, right now, by actively building your coherent nexus, you are taking absolute ownership of your relational future. So the only real question left is, what will you pass on? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep building.